Welcome to Forgotten Civilization, where we bring to life the lost worlds that shaped humanity from the deserts of the Americas to the temples of the ancients. Here, every ruin has a story, every artifact a whisper, and every forgotten people a lesson for our modern world. In this episode, we travel deep into the heart of the New Mexico desert, to a place where the earth meets the stars. A vast, silent canyon that once pulsed with life, ceremony, and cosmic purpose. This is the story of Chaco Canyon, the center of one of North America's most extraordinary civilizations, America's ancient astronomers. The desert is quiet now. The wind hums low through the canyons, brushing past walls of sandstone that glow like fire under the rising sun. From above, the land looks barren, endless stretches of red earth and stone. But 1,000 years ago, this place was alive with people, music, and ritual. Fires burned in great kivas beneath the stars, drums echoed through the valley, and roads stretched across the desert in perfect lines. This was Chaco Canyon, the beating heart of an empire that flourished between 900 and 1150 CE, a civilization so advanced, so intentional, that its builders aligned their entire city with the cosmos itself. Imagine walking into Pueblo Bonito, the largest of Chaco's great houses. Its curved walls rise in massive arcs, 4 stories high, built of finely cut sandstone stacked with mathematical precision. Over 600 rooms once filled this complex, storage chambers, living quarters, and ceremonial halls that could host hundreds. To the untrained eye, it looks like an ancient fortress, but to the Chacoans, it was far more. A place of spiritual alignment, designed to mirror the heavens. When archaeologists began studying the site in the late 19th century, they were stunned. How could a civilization in such a harsh environment, with no rivers, limited rainfall, and no written language, create something so monumental, so organized, so cosmically aware? To understand that, we must go back to the beginning of the Chaco world, the heart of the desert empire. Long before European settlers crossed the continent, long before cities like Cahokia rose in the Mississippi Valley, the ancestors of the Pueblo peoples began to shape their destiny in the Four Corners region, where Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico meet. Around 800 CE, small farming villages began to cluster in the Chaco Wash, a narrow valley carved by erosion and framed by high sandstone mesas. It was not a lush place, rainfall was scarce, and summers were unforgiving, but the land offered something unique: stability. The Chacoans learned to adapt, digging canals, channeling runoff, and planting crops of corn, beans, and squash in carefully managed fields. But survival alone was not their goal. The Chacoans dreamed bigger. They sought connection, both earthly and celestial. They built their homes not randomly, but in alignment, to the sun, to the moon, to the stars that guided their lives. Over generations, their settlements grew in size and sophistication, culminating in a network of monumental buildings, the great houses, each serving as a social, economic, and spiritual hub. Pueblo Bonito, Chetroquetl, Una Vida, and Pueblo del Arroyo stood like sentinels in the canyon, linked by a system of straight ceremonial roads that stretched for hundreds of miles in all directions. These weren't just trade routes. Many of these roads lead nowhere visible, ending abruptly at cliffs or merging with the horizon. Archaeologists believe they symbolized spiritual pathways, roads of pilgrimage, guiding travelers between worlds, the earthly and the divine. Chaco Canyon became the ceremonial center of the Southwest, a gathering place for thousands of people from distant communities. Pilgrims brought turquoise from Arizona, macaw feathers from Mexico, shells from the Pacific, and obsidian from the Rockies. It was a hub of trade, ritual, and astronomy, a city that looked upward as much as outward. But what makes Chaco truly extraordinary is not just its scale, but its precision. Every major building in Chaco Canyon was planned with astronomical intent. The walls of Pueblo Bonito align with the cardinal directions. Key windows mark the rising and setting sun during the solstices. At Casa Rinconada, one of the largest kivas ever discovered, a small slit in the wall allows sunlight to strike the altar perfectly at dawn on the summer solstice. A celestial event planned a millennium ago. For the Chacoans, the cosmos was not distant. It was woven into the architecture of daily life. Their cities were living observatories, where religion, science, and community merged seamlessly. They tracked the 18.6-year lunar cycle, a feat that required generations of observation. They built shrines atop mesas to mark equinoxes, and their rituals followed the rhythm of the stars. How did they achieve such knowledge without telescopes, without compasses, without writing? Their eyes were their instruments, their patience their technology. Through observation and oral tradition, they built a calendar that matched the sky, a cosmic order reflected in stone. As day faded to night in the canyon, torches would light the plazas, and the people would look upward. The Milky Way, bright and vast, stretched over their world like a celestial river. To the Chacoans, it was the pathway of souls, the bridge between the earthly and the divine. Every stone, every shadow, every ceremony was part of that connection, a bond between humanity and the universe itself. The great houses of the sky, architecture and astronomy. The desert sun beats down mercilessly, casting long shadows that crawl across the ancient stone walls of Pueblo Bonito. From a distance, its sweeping D-shaped form almost seems to echo the horizon itself, the curve of the earth caught in stone. Up close, however, it reveals something far more deliberate, far more astonishing. Every wall, every doorway, every alignment of this colossal structure appears to have been built with the heavens in mind. The Chacoans were not merely masons or farmers, they were architects of the cosmos. As we step deeper into the ruins, the geometry becomes undeniable. The entire site of Pueblo Bonito is oriented toward the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with an accuracy that would impress even modern surveyors. But what makes this alignment remarkable is how it interacts with the movement of the sun and moon. On the mornings of the summer solstice, sunlight streams directly through specific doorways, illuminating internal walls and altars in a choreography that repeats every year with stunning precision. And on the winter solstice, the light shifts, reaching another part of the great structure, as if signaling the rebirth of the sun itself. This celestial dance is no coincidence. The builders of Chaco Canyon had mastered solar and lunar geometry. They tracked the sky over decades, even generations, marking the seasonal shifts that guided both their agriculture and their rituals. But unlike simple farming calendars, Chaco's observations reached beyond the practical, into the philosophical and spiritual realms. They believed that aligning their world with the cosmos ensured harmony, prosperity, and divine balance. The Fajada Butte, a towering sandstone monolith near the canyon's center, stands as the most iconic symbol of this cosmic alignment. Upon its cliffs lies the famous Sun Dagger, a precise astronomical marker discovered in 1977. Here, 3 stone slabs lean against the cliff face, casting patterns of light and shadow onto a spiral petroglyph carved into the rock. On the summer solstice, a single beam of light, the dagger, slices through the spiral's center. On the winter solstice, 2 daggers frame the spiral perfectly, and during the equinoxes the patterns change once again. This was no random artwork. It was a celestial calendar, carved into living stone by a people who understood the language of the sky. The Sun Dagger shows that the Chacoans didn't just watch the heavens, they synchronized their lives to its rhythm. Their ceremonies, migrations, and even construction projects may have been timed according to these cycles. The movement of light across stone became both a scientific instrument and a sacred message from the gods, a reminder that time itself flowed through the earth. But Fajada Butte is just one piece of the greater puzzle. The Chacoan road system, stretching across the desert for more than 400 miles, also seems to follow cosmic order. These roads, sometimes as wide as modern highways, cut through canyons, climb cliffs, and stretch in straight lines that ignore topography. Why would a civilization without wheels or beasts of burden build such monumental causeways? The answer, many researchers believe, lies again in astronomy and ritual. Some of these roads align with major celestial events, the rising and setting points of the sun or the moon. Others connect distant outlier communities that may have shared in seasonal pilgrimages. Imagine the scene 1,000 years ago. Processions of pilgrims walking these roads beneath the blazing sun, carrying offerings of turquoise and feathers, their eyes fixed on the horizon where the stars would later rise. These roads were not meant for trade or transport. They were spiritual arteries linking the Chacoan heart to the heavens. Inside the canyon, the architecture reflects this same celestial harmony. The kivas, circular subterranean chambers, played a central role in ritual life. They were built in careful proportions, symbolizing the sipapu, or place of emergence, the mythic point where the first people ascended from the underworld. In Chaco, kivas weren't just ceremonial spaces, they were microcosms of the universe. The round shape mirrored the heavens above, while the fire in the center represented the sun, life's eternal source. At Casa Rinconada, one of the largest kivas in Chaco Canyon, a small window cut into the wall allows sunlight to pierce the darkness and strike the altar precisely at dawn on the summer solstice. This alignment would have illuminated the chamber in golden light, transforming the space into a living observatory. The entire building itself may have served as a cosmic stage, where priests and astronomers, perhaps one and the same, performed rituals that honored the balance between earth and sky. This fusion of engineering, spirituality, and astronomy suggests a level of sophistication that challenges our understanding of pre-Columbian America. The Chacoans did not possess writing or metal tools, yet their knowledge of geometry, observation, and planning was extraordinary. Each new discovery in the canyon, from the precise layout of buildings to the astronomical petroglyphs on cliff faces, adds another layer to the enigma of how they achieved such mastery. And yet, Chaco's alignment with the heavens wasn't purely functional or aesthetic. It carried profound cultural meaning. The cycles of the sun and moon represented life, death, and rebirth, the eternal rhythm of existence. By constructing their cities in harmony with these forces, the Chacoans anchored their civilization to something far greater than themselves. Their world was not divided between science and religion, as ours often is. To them, the act of measuring the stars was itself an act of worship. As night descends over Chaco Canyon today, the same constellations that guided its ancient architects still shimmer above the desert. Orion, the Pleiades, the Milky Way. But the voices that once filled these great houses are gone. Only the stones remain, whispering in the dark, perfectly aligned to a sky that no longer remembers their names. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore how this magnificent civilization, one of the most advanced in ancient North America, reached its peak of power, influence, and connection. But we'll also uncover the beginning of its decline, as environmental strain and social transformation began to unravel the harmony between earth and sky. Empire of the Southwest, power, pilgrimage, and collapse. The desert winds whistle through the ruins of Chaco Canyon, whispering echoes of a once great society whose reach stretched across the vast Southwest. Between the years 850 and 1150 CE, the Chacoans were not simply a local community, they were the architects of an empire. A cultural network that drew in thousands of people, hundreds of miles away. Their roads, great houses, and astronomical monuments were not isolated achievements. They were the infrastructure of power, trade, and belief that bound together a civilization as mysterious as it was magnificent. As the population swelled, Chaco became the beating heart of an enormous network. Archaeologists have uncovered dozens of outlier sites, smaller great houses scattered across New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Utah, all linked back to Chaco by the famous roads that go nowhere. But these roads didn't go nowhere. They went to the soul of Chaco's system. Pilgrims, traders, and emissaries traveled them, bringing goods, ideas, and stories to the canyon. The center of this vast network was Pueblo Bonito, the crown jewel of Chaco civilization. With more than 650 rooms, multi-storied walls rising 4 and 5 stories high, and a massive plaza for gatherings, Pueblo Bonito wasn't just a home. It was a city within a city, a ceremonial capital carved from sandstone and spirit. What made this possible? The answer lies in trade and religion interwoven like threads of turquoise and shell beads. Archaeological excavations at Chaco have revealed artifacts that tell a story of long-distance connections almost unimaginable for the time. Macaw feathers from Central America, copper bells from Mexico, turquoise mined from distant mountains, and even cacao residue evidence of chocolate-drinking rituals, all point to a trade network spanning thousands of miles. Chaco, it seems, was not isolated. It was cosmopolitan, a place where goods and beliefs flowed in equal measure, and where the material and the spiritual were inseparable. Trade was power, but power in Chaco also came from the priests and astronomers who governed the canyon. Their knowledge of the heavens gave them divine authority. When they predicted the solstice or the appearance of certain stars, it confirmed their connection to the gods and justified their leadership. Many researchers now believe that Chaco may have been ruled by an elite theocratic class, a priesthood that combined political control with religious dominance. This wasn't governance through force, it was governance through awe. Imagine the spectacle. Hundreds of people gathered in the plaza of Pueblo Bonito as the summer solstice dawn began to break. Priests, dressed in elaborate robes adorned with feathers and shells, raised their arms toward the eastern horizon. As the first light pierces the canyon and shines directly through aligned doorways, the crowd gasps. The gods have spoken, and the balance of the world is reaffirmed. It was through such celestial theater that the Chacoan leaders sustained their power and their people's faith. But every golden age has its shadows. As Chaco expanded, so did its hunger for resources. The desert, already harsh, began to strain under the weight of human ambition. Archaeological evidence shows widespread deforestation as the Chacoans cut down juniper and pinyon pine for firewood and construction. Over time, the land could no longer support the growing population. The once fertile valleys began to dry, and the fragile ecological balance that sustained Chaco started to crack. Then came the droughts. Dendrochronology, the study of tree rings, reveals that around 1130 CE, a devastating 50-year drought swept across the region. The rains stopped, crops withered, food became scarce. For a people whose entire spiritual worldview was built on harmony between earth and sky, this breakdown of nature must have felt like divine punishment. The very cosmos they had so carefully aligned themselves with now seemed to turn against them. Desperation grew. Some scholars suggest that rival factions within the Chacoan elite began to emerge, each claiming divine favor, each seeking control over dwindling resources. Others argue that common people, once loyal to the priests and astronomers, began to lose faith. The monumental great houses, once centers of pilgrimage and ceremony, were abandoned or ritually burned. Roads that once connected a sacred world became paths to nowhere. The collapse of Chaco was not sudden. It was slow, like the dying embers of a once great fire. People began to migrate outward, carrying fragments of their culture to new lands. Many of these refugees would later become the ancestors of today's Pueblo peoples, including the Hopi, Zuni, and Acoma. In their oral traditions, there are echoes of Chaco's rise and fall, stories of migration, of stars, and of forgotten cities built by their ancestors. One Hopi elder once described their ancient journey as a movement guided by the sun. We followed the light to find balance again. Perhaps, in their departure from Chaco, they were not fleeing failure, but fulfilling prophecy, moving toward a new harmony after the old one had collapsed. And yet, the ruins of Chaco Canyon endure. The stones still whisper their stories, the alignments still trace the celestial order, and the silence of the desert still carries the hum of ancient knowledge. The Chacoans may have disappeared, but their legacy, architectural, astronomical, and spiritual, remains embedded in the landscape. Today, when the moon rises over the cliffs of New Mexico and light spills into the empty kivas, one cannot help but feel that the people of Chaco are still here, written into the stars they so faithfully followed. Legacy in stone, rediscovering the Chacoan world. The ruins of Chaco Canyon are more than remnants of stone. They are messages written in architecture, preserved across centuries, waiting to be deciphered. For generations, these structures lay silent beneath the desert sun, dismissed by early explorers as primitive ruins of a forgotten people. But as archaeology matured and science evolved, the truth began to surface. The Chacoans were among the most sophisticated ancient astronomers in North America, their understanding of the cosmos rivaling that of civilizations half a world away. The story of Chaco's rediscovery begins in the 19th century, when American surveyors and explorers first stumbled upon the vast stone complexes. What they found defied expectations: massive, multi-storied buildings, roads carved with geometric precision, and artifacts hinting at complex rituals. Yet for decades, Chaco was misunderstood, its significance underestimated. It was only in the 20th century, with the advent of aerial photography and advanced archaeological techniques, that researchers began to see the grand pattern, the hidden order connecting every wall, window, and road to the movements of the heavens. Among the most astonishing discoveries is the Sun Dagger at Fajada Butte. In 1977, researcher Anna Sophia noticed something extraordinary. 3 large stone slabs leaning against the cliff created a narrow channel of light that passed through them. On the summer solstice, this beam of light sliced directly through the center of a carved spiral etched into the rock. On the winter solstice, 2 beams framed the spiral's edge. During the equinoxes, the pattern changed again, perfectly marking the celestial calendar. This was not coincidence. It was cosmic engineering. The Chacoans had built a solar calendar of stone, hidden high above their city, tracking the sun's yearly journey with a precision that still amazes astronomers today. But the Sun Dagger is only one clue among many. The layout of Chaco's great houses, particularly Pueblo Bonito, Chaco, and Casa Rinconada, reveals consistent alignments with cardinal directions and celestial events. Doorways, windows, and walls often frame the rising or setting sun at key moments in the year. Archaeologists and archaeoastronomers have confirmed that these alignments were intentional, designed to synchronize human life with the rhythm of the cosmos. It suggests that Chaco was not merely a city, but a ceremonial machine, built to mirror the order of the universe. Even the roads that radiate from Chaco Canyon seem to carry cosmic intent. Some stretch in perfectly straight lines for dozens of miles, unbending even across rough terrain. Their precision hints at a spiritual purpose. Perhaps they represented pathways of the sun or routes of pilgrimage, guiding travelers along sacred journeys. Many of these roads lead to distant outlier sites, some aligned with key astronomical directions, others marking horizon points where the sun or moon would rise. Taken together, they form a kind of cosmic map, uniting earth and sky into one vast sacred landscape. Yet for all their brilliance, the Chacoans left no written records. Their story survives through stones, artifacts, and the oral traditions of their descendants. Among the modern Pueblo peoples, stories still circulate of ancient ancestors who built with light and who walked with the stars. Some Hopi and Zuni elders describe Chaco as a sacred center where their forebears learned to live in balance with the cosmos, before pride and imbalance led to its downfall. These oral traditions, far from myth, now serve as a cultural key for archaeologists trying to interpret the spiritual meaning behind Chaco's structures. In recent decades, collaboration between Native American elders and scientists has reshaped our understanding of this civilization. Archaeologists once sought purely physical explanations: trade, drought, migration. But today, researchers increasingly recognize that spiritual worldview and ecological awareness are central to Chaco's story. Every kiva, every alignment, every road carried meaning, not just practical, but cosmic. The Chacoans didn't separate science from religion or architecture from ritual. Their world was one of harmony, where stars, seasons, and human actions were threads of the same fabric. Excavations continue to reveal surprises. In the chambers of Pueblo Bonito, researchers discovered cylindrical jars with residues of cacao, imported from over 200 miles away in Mesoamerica, evidence of trade networks extending deep into the tropics. They also found turquoise workshops, where artisans shaped thousands of stones into beads, mosaics, and ceremonial offerings. These materials, glowing blue against the desert's red, carried symbolic power: the color of the sky, the essence of water, the breath of life. To the Chacons, turquoise was not just decoration, It was a sacred conduit between the earthly and the divine. Perhaps most astonishing is the evidence of how the Chacoans viewed time itself. Some researchers propose that Chaco functioned as a kind of celestial observatory, where priests and astronomers tracked long-term cycles of the moon, particularly the 18.6-year lunar standstill. At key moments in this cycle, the moon rises or sets at its extreme northern or southern points on the horizon. Certain great houses and ceremonial spaces appear to align with these rare events, suggesting that the Chacoans not only marked annual solstices, but also measured decades-long cosmic rhythms. It was as if they were mapping eternity itself. As modern visitors walk among the ruins today, it's impossible not to feel the magnitude of this legacy. The walls of Chaco Canyon are not dead stone. They are alive with memory. Every block of sandstone, every carved spiral, speaks of a people who sought to live in balance with forces larger than themselves. The desert silence becomes a kind of music, a reminder that knowledge, once gained, never truly vanishes. The Chacoans may have left their cities behind, but they did not vanish. Their spirit endures in the songs, dances, and ceremonies of the Pueblo tribes, who still honor their ancestors through the rhythm of the seasons and the motion of the stars. When the Hopi dancers turn their faces toward the sunrise, when the Zuni priests watch for the moon's cycle, they continue a dialogue that began 1,000 years ago in the heart of Chaco Canyon. Echoes of the sky, lessons from Chaco Canyon. The sun sets over the desert, and as its last light fades behind the mesas, the stones of Chaco Canyon begin to glow with a quiet, timeless energy. The great houses, Pueblo Bonito, Chacoan, Casa Rinconada, stand like ancient observatories, their walls aligned with the same celestial rhythms that once guided the lives of those who built them. Though centuries have passed since the Chacoan people vanished from these canyons, their spirit still lingers, in the stars above, in the earth beneath, and in the memory of what humanity once achieved when it sought harmony with the universe rather than dominance over it. The ruins of Chaco Canyon are not simply archaeological sites, they are cosmic monuments, testaments to the human capacity for knowledge, unity, and wonder. Modern science tells us that Chaco's architects tracked the cycles of the sun, the moon, and the stars with a precision rivaling that of ancient Egypt or Babylon. But beyond their astronomical mastery lies a deeper truth. The Chacoans understood that civilization thrives only when it remains connected to the natural world. They built their lives around the balance of earth and sky, timing their rituals, their agriculture, and their very existence to the celestial clockwork of the cosmos. When we walk through these ruins today, it is tempting to see them as remnants of a lost past, a people who disappeared into the sands of time. Yet in reality, Chaco's story is one of continuity, not disappearance. The descendants of the Chacoans, the Hopi, Zuni, Acoma, Laguna, and other Pueblo peoples, carry forward the same reverence for balance, community, and the sacred connection between all living things. Their ceremonies, songs, and oral histories are living archives of ancient wisdom. In their eyes, the stones of Chaco are not ruins, but ancestors, still teaching, still guiding, still reminding humanity of the order of things. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Chaco offers to us today. In a world driven by speed, consumption, and technology, we often lose sight of the rhythms that govern life itself, the turning of the earth, the flow of the seasons, the dance of the stars. The Chacoans built their civilization not on conquest or greed, but on cosmic alignment, an understanding that to live well, one must live in balance. They measured time not by profit but by light, not by ownership but by connection. Archaeologists and astronomers continue to unlock the secrets of Chaco's design, but some mysteries will forever remain beyond the reach of data. Who first noticed the solstice light striking the spiral at Fajada Butte? What prayers were whispered in the kivas as the moon reached its standstill? What hopes or fears filled the hearts of the last Chacoans as they walked away from their sacred home? These questions remind us that science and spirit were never separate for the people of Chaco. They were two faces of the same truth. Modern researchers using satellite mapping, LiDAR scanning, and cosmic simulations have revealed even more astonishing details. Subtle alignments between distant great houses, road networks forming geometric patterns, and correlations with lunar cycles spanning decades. Every new discovery reinforces the idea that Chaco was not an accident of ingenuity. It was a deliberate act of cosmic architecture. The people who built it did not just inhabit the earth, they conversed with the heavens. And yet, for all their brilliance, the Chacoans remain humble in their message to us. The ruins whisper softly, all greatness is fleeting if it forgets balance. The drought that drove them away is a reminder that no civilization, however advanced, can escape the laws of nature. When the rain stopped, when the wood was gone, when the earth could no longer bear the weight of ambition, the people listened to the silence of the sky, and they moved on. They did not vanish, they adapted. They carried their knowledge, their stories, and their faith to new lands, ensuring that the spirit of Chaco would live on in every sunrise prayer and every moonlit dance. Today, Chaco Canyon stands as both a monument and a mirror. A monument to what humanity can achieve when guided by reverence, and a mirror reflecting our own choices as a modern civilization. Will we too live in harmony with our environment? Will we build with purpose, guided by wisdom and humility? Or will we repeat the same mistakes, overreaching until nature reminds us who truly governs the earth? As night falls over the canyon, the stars emerge one by one, tracing the same constellations that the Chacoan astronomers once studied. The air cools, the shadows stretch, and the Milky Way arches overhead like a celestial highway. In that moment, the boundaries between past and present blur. The same sky that watched over them watches over us. The same questions they asked about creation, destiny, and the order of the cosmos still echo in our hearts. Perhaps that is the true legacy of Chaco Canyon. Not the stones, nor the roads, nor the carvings, but the invitation to remember, to look upward, to find meaning in the stars, and to seek balance once more. The Chacoans did not simply build cities, they built a philosophy, one carved not into parchment but into the landscape itself. As the screen fades, the camera pans slowly upward, from the dark silhouette of Pueblo Bonito to the infinite canopy of stars above. The narrator's voice softens, reverent. They lived by the stars. They listened to the earth. They built not for power, but for harmony. The people of Chaco remind us that even in silence the universe speaks, if only we choose to hear it. And so ends our journey through the celestial city of Chaco Canyon, a civilization that measured time in light and built its world in rhythm with the heavens. If this story moved you, there are countless more waiting to be uncovered. From the lost temples of Mesoamerica to the buried mysteries beneath the American plains, each tale brings us closer to understanding the ancient heart of humanity. Subscribe to Forgotten Civilization, where we resurrect the stories time tried to erase. Because the past isn't gone, it's waiting to be rediscovered.